All right, welcome in. We're going to try to get our Facebook people in here real quick. Don't want to miss out on them, but and we're circling. We got check marks. There we go. Welcome in, everyone, to Building the Broncos. And I mean, obviously, not the best week to be talking about Bronco football after how many different ways can you lose a football game? I mean, all you got to do is kick a field goal. You doink it off the post. All you got to do is not throw an interception, have another field goal opportunity, but no, you throw an interception. All you got to do is let a guy kick a 60-plus yard field goal and not do something stupid. And what do? You do something stupid. So I get it. Obviously, a little bit of a downtime. We're talking stock up, stock down, and it's going to be a little bit easier to go towards the stock down of, this sucks that we lost this game. But at the same time, on the road against, I think, a pretty darn good Colts team.
Yeah.
And a team that has some weapons that were difficult for the Broncos to cover. You know, they have the very weapons that are the Achilles heel of this defense. And but we'll get into all that. Before we do, I want to make sure to introduce this guy next to me here, Mr. Erick Trickel. Nick is getting himself packed up and ready to go, moving closer to Broncos country. And so he's kind of wrapping that all up. Eric graciously decided he was going to step in and join me and put up with my annoying questions and comments and everything else. So appreciate you stepping in here, Eric, and good to see you, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. And you said graciously step in, but Nick kind of, forced his hand here. He told me you do it or else. I think he's still a little bittersweet or a little bit bitter, I guess is the right word. From Sunday during the game of booting him out of our group chat. He's still blaming me for the loss of the Colts for kicking him out of the group chat, but it is what it is. He's got a pack, and I'm glad to be here. It's another opportunity to talk about Broncos football, even though, as you said, it's after a loss, which kind of stinks, but sometimes you can get some answers in a loss. You can get some idea of where this teams are actually at in a loss. And you mentioned the Colts, one thing with them, and this goes back for years, even when they weren't like really good over the last couple of years. Shane Steichen has such a well-coached team, and their offensive line is so well-coached and so technically sound that they are, for somebody who enjoys technical play from offensive linemen, it's absolutely fun to watch and absolutely beautiful. It's just too damn bad that the Broncos were on the bad end of it, and that's absolutely got manhandled in the trenches by that offensive line, but it was a tough matchup for the Broncos because of the weapons that they had, primarily with Jonathan Taylor and Tyler Warren, and Steichen's offense really doing those horizontal spacing routes that the Broncos secondary has issues with. It was just a perfect storm for the Broncos defense. They failed drastically in so many different ways. And one thing too is the Broncos have only won one time in Indianapolis since 2004. And
Jeez.
I mean, they had some great quarterbacks there, Peyton Manning and Andrew Luck, for example, but Indies can be a tough place to win sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. Well, a place that always wins is our super chats and just the chat alone. Thank you guys for stepping in. And as always, we have Michael Ronquillo coming in saying, good evening, Nick and Carl on Building the Broncos. Go Bo Broncos. Michael, good to see you. Thank you for tuning in once again. And like I said, tough after a loss, but you guys continue to show up, whether we're winning, whether we're losing. We appreciate it. And another one here coming in, David, with a $20 super chat. Really appreciate that, David, and always appreciate getting to talk football with you. I think I'm going to be joining him here in a couple weeks for his show and get a chance to talk about a bunch of things. And so he says, what is your biggest fear for the Broncos over the next 2 to 3 years? Mine is that they plateau as an 8 to 10 win team that can't win a playoff game, and they give Sean Payton another contract extension, don't reward average. So, and David actually had messaged me this question a little bit earlier today. So I've had a little bit more time to think about it. So I'll answer first, then Eric, you can kind of give your thoughts on this. And I appreciate this, David. I mean, this is a great question. You got to think of best case scenario, obviously winning a Super Bowl. Bo Nix proves he's the quarterback for the next 10, 15 years, and we're all cheering for forever. And Sean Payton becomes coach of the year for many different years and gets his own statue by the end of all this. But the worst case scenario I would say more so than the 8 to 10 would be the 6 to 8 win area, where you're not getting one of those top picks, especially if Bo Nix doesn't prove himself to be the quarterback for the long term. And so then you got all these other teams that are getting the picks before them. And then you're kind of left with the leftovers at the quarterback position. I mean, you could say, I guess, the Broncos took Bo Nix as the 6th quarterback. That was a unique draft. And I'm looking at the college game right now. There's not many quarterbacks that I'm looking at going, I would really like that quarterback to be a Bronco someday. Arch Manning has not been good. Some of these other guys, I mean, the LSU quarterback, he's been up and down. I don't know. It's not been anything that's gotten me excited here recently of guys that you're just like, that's a surefire top 5 kind of guy like we've had in some of these other drafts. So I think that would be where I'm stuck at, is if they fall in that 6 to 8 win area and they keep trying with Bo Nix and it's not quite working. Some of these big contracts don't work out either. All of a sudden guys are getting banged up, not turning out to be great players. I think that would be worst case scenario.
Yeah, for me, so when it comes to scouting, and I'm going to throw this out there and it's going to play into my question, I don't scout players until the year they're eligible. So if you're an underclassman and if you're a junior or a freshman or a sophomore and you're playing great, I pay zero attention to you until you're draft eligible. I don't have the time or the energy really to sit there and think about 2 to 3 years down the road for the Broncos. So, I mean, the worst thing that can happen is being stuck in that like 6 to 8, 6 to 9 win range where you're picking, not quite top 5, but not making the playoffs either. That's just the generic worst place to be in, because it's hard to get, those top talents that can really, potentially can change the outcome of your team and the course of your team. But you're also not at a point where you're competing and drawing in free agents from the fact that you're a perennial playoff team. So it's tough, but worst case scenario would be that, but it's not something that I put a lot of thought into, because it's that. And real quick, is the Broncos have only, just to clarify, I don't know if I said this wrong earlier, the Broncos have only beat Indianapolis in Indianapolis once since 2004. It was 2017. It was Osweiler and Trevor Siemian at quarterback. I don't know if I misspoke earlier and said that they haven't beat it, but they've only won once in Indianapolis since 2004.
That's just crazy. I mean, I know it's kind of the same thing. Like, I think it's the Cowboys haven't won in Denver in forever, like since like the 90s or something like that. I can't remember exactly what it is, but we got Chris Bell coming in with the $10 super saying, good evening, Carl and Eric. Beard's looking great. Eric, yeah, it's coming back in. Looking good, man. Says, I personally think that will be okay. Just the second game. Just need to fix the mistakes and grow and move on. It's only September. Let's go Broncos. I think, like you said, you can see some real weaknesses that could cost this team. Like I said, the tight end, the running back, if a team has those 2 weapons, this team is going to struggle. We're going to have to really depend on Greenlaw, 1, staying healthy, 2, being the player we all think he can be, to really take care of that problem, at least a little bit. Second thing is, teams like this where they have all these multiple weapons and the Broncos are trying to play so much man coverage, it leads to all these one-on-one matchups that against a lot of teams, the Broncos can do this and be fine. I saw somebody say stock down on the secondary. For the most part, I thought the secondary was in pretty good position. The Colts just caught everything. There were so many plays. I'm like, what else would you want your cornerback to do? Like, beyond being able to knock it down, they were in perfect position. They just got out-muscled for the football. And so, like I said, I think there's some things we learned. The defensive line against a good offensive line, there's going to be some struggles there. They're still a good unit, but they can get pushed around by a big bully kind of group that says, hey, we're just going to punch you in the face. We're going to see how you handle it. I think sometimes the defense has this idea that, hey, we're going to punch everybody, that we're going to be getting after the quarterback so much, we're going to overwhelm them. And the Colts just showed, like, we're not scared of this. We're not scared to go after the defensive player of the year, if that's what it takes. And the Broncos, especially on defense, I just don't think they were quite prepared for this one. I think they really thought our talent is just better than your talent. And I don't think the scheme was great. I don't think some of these guys had their best game by any means.
Yeah, there were a lot of issues with this. I think on the defensive side of the ball, especially, obviously, there was issues with the way Vance Joseph had the defense set up with what he was doing with it. And they threw about 6 different ways to try to cover Tyler Warren. Only one of them was successful, and that was the one they did the least. They only did about maybe 5 times. And it was frustrating to watch. And, when they brought them in, Dre Greenlaw and Talanoa Hufanga, part of the reason why they brought them in was not only to help against the run and help in other ways, but help eliminate tight ends in the passing game. Well, Dre Greenlaw's out. That stinks. You still have Talanoa Hufanga, and you only have him covering him 5 times. And instead of even having him play close to the line, you're having Brandon Jones play close to the line and Talanoa Hufanga playing that high safety role, which just led to more issues because Hufanga, he doesn't have the range to be a high safety. So a lot of issues with that. Then again, Steichen, he did such a good job with the horizontal routes. Patrick Surtain, he's always been a little stiff. He can run that straight line very well, but he's not always the most fluid with change of direction. Jaquan McMillan, that's where he struggles at. Riley Moss, like the secondary really struggles with, the change of direction routes. And they threw a lot of those at that. They threw a lot of, a lot of play action, RPO type stuff at these linebackers who have really bad habits of biting on them. And using that to sneak guys too, hiding Tyler Warren in the backfield, and making things muddy for the linebackers to read him and letting him slip through for a big gain. Like there was just a lot. They looked a little bit outmatched. They looked outcoached. In the running game, they definitely lacked that big body to clog the middle and demand double teams. You saw a lot that was wrong with the Broncos, but as Nick and I said yesterday morning, who the Broncos were yesterday, it's not who they're going to be for the whole season. They're going to be different. They're going to, even great defenses have bad games. Maybe this was just a bad game for them. Maybe it was just one of those things where all the pieces for the Colts just were the right pieces to play against have success against the Broncos defense. And on that, I wanted to grab this real quick with Kendra Lakari. Someone on MHA said Singleton's getting $9 million. No way that happens. I was the one who said it, but there was more context to it than just saying that he's going to get it. Depends on how his play, of course. And remember last year entering the season, nobody thought Cody Barton was going to get $7 million. Desperate teams do desperate things. And Alex Singleton, depending on how his play, the way he's going, he's definitely not getting anywhere near that. But it all depends on how he plays. And with the way linebacker market has exploded over this last offseason, if he plays well enough, it's a possibility. And that's what I was saying. Just wanted to clarify.
Yeah. And this was a terrible game for Singleton, obviously, but it was pretty much the worst case scenario matchup. A really fast running back. I think this was one of the fastest runs by a running back in the last NFL season. Yeah. When you're looking back on last year and this year. And Singleton, obviously, he just doesn't have that change of direction ability. He doesn't have the speed to make up if he makes a bad step. And there were just a few times where he took a really bad step and boom, gone. And it just, that's always been kind of the MO of what the Colts try to do. There's a lot of run for about 2 yards, run for about 2 yards. And then there might be that 75-yard run that kind of pops off out of nowhere. And I kept kind of waiting for it during the game, going, oh man, like we did pretty well of containing him for the first bit, but there were some signs that something was coming. And I do think this is a game that he really did have circled, going, I've got to really make up for what I did last year of costing my team possibly the game and the playoffs. And he really showed up in a great way. I mean, good for him for coming back that way and not letting that destroy his ability to be a good running back. But yeah, it just, like I said, it was not a good matchup for the Broncos with what they had out there. I think if Greenlaw was out there, maybe a couple things change where you could have a little bit better coverage on some of those positions and maybe you make 1 or 2 more plays. The nice thing is about everything that could go wrong on the defense did go wrong. And yet the Broncos really should have still won this game. The offense showed up a lot better, putting up 21 points in the first half. Wish they would have. Sometimes they throttle back. It's almost like they're afraid of making a mistake, and then it causes them to make a mistake. And I hate to see that. And so I'm hoping that maybe, again, they learn from some of that, get back to what was working there. Troy Franklin had himself a good game. We'll get into some of that with the stock up, stock down here in just a little bit. But truly, like I said, a lot of things went wrong in this game, and they still should have won it. Like, Colts had to have about 4 things go right in the fourth quarter to even have a chance. And everything just happened to break their way. And it was on the road too. First road game of the season. I think there were a little bit of nerves on some side of things. And I do think in some ways the Broncos maybe bought in a little bit too much to their hype to start the season. They have not looked very sharp on some things. But I did love going from week 1 to week 2 on the offense. They got to the line a lot quicker. You could tell Bo Nix had a lot more time to really diagnose everything going on around him. They were getting to the line with like 15 or 16 seconds left on the play clock instead of 8 to 10. Yeah. And that extra 5 seconds really makes a difference in what they could do. And it was nice to see some of these other guys step up. Like I said, Troy Franklin, Marvin Mims goes and has himself a nice little kind of comeback game from what he did week 1. And running game was working pretty well, at least that first half. So I think that you can take it both ways. You can take it to looking at how these things went wrong. These are things we need to work on. But you can also look at, okay, this is where we grew from 1 week into the season. And now moving forward, I think you got some good opportunities.
Yeah, I view this game a little bit differently. This is a game that Denver shouldn't have been in at all. If it wasn't for the red zone defense that held the Colts to 0-3 in the red zone, for touchdowns specifically, it's not close. Like they were allowing the yards between it, and then they just would hunker down in the red zone, and that's great. Put Denver in a position to win. You want that, but everything else was in the Colts' favor. More plays, more yards, more drives, takeaways. Like, they were just a better team. Only other thing that the Broncos had on the better aspect of it was they had fewer penalties, even though they had 13 more yards, penalty yards against them. So it was a rough one. It was a weird game, but one positive with the defense, since we've been talking a lot about it, is that they did step up when the field got short and kept them out of the end zone in the red zone situation. Obviously still had a couple touchdowns, and they, for the most part, they actually did a decent job of limiting Jonathan Taylor. Obviously that one big run, as a runner, not as a receiver, obviously that one big run does skew things a lot. And that is just a complete breakdown. There was a lot that went wrong with that play. That is a play that is nightmare fuel for the defense. But if you take that one run out, Taylor was averaging 4 yards per rush. For his top running back, that's actually not a bad average to hold them to. That one play added 2.6 yards per rush to it, which is how big that run is. Go from 4.0 to 2 or to 6.6. So there's some positives to take away from this defense, and it's just hard to see it because of the way the game went and how it went. And fact is, it came down to a bad decision on Sean Payton on the field goal kick at the end to, try to go for a block. And Tillman was, first time ever, Tillman has never lined up in that spot on a field goal block before. This was the first time he ever did it. And he happens to pull down on the Colts player and uses that to help himself get a little bit higher in the air, which is textbook leverage. It was the right call. It's just unfortunate, bad timing. And there was no reason for them to be going for a block on that play. Just let Schrader go for it. He's a guy his career long is 48 yards. Big moment, big pressure. There was no need to block it. Just let him go see. And guy doesn't have much of even in warm-ups before the game. Right? I think they said on the broadcast that he was struggling to hit 57-yarders. He was hitting them, but was struggling for it.
Yeah.
So should have just let him go for it. It was a bad mistake, but, shouldn't have been in that position. As you said, Will Lutz doinked it. And all day long on his field goals and extra points, they were sitting there, they're curving back to the right. It was just asking for the inevitable there. But you shouldn't get to that point. And Denver did, and Denver made a mistake, and it cost them the game.
Yeah. And I see a few people saying you guys are being negative, and we're trying to get both sides of it. You know, when you especially have a loss like this, there's going to be some emotions that come with it, and you're looking at, okay, we should have done this, this, and this. These things went wrong, and we'll get to the positives here too, in a big way. But I just want us to be able to see, like I said, the fact is Broncos messed up a lot, and they still should have won this game. You know, one less mistake, and this is a game in the Broncos' favor. And so I still feel really good about this team. I still feel really good about the next couple games. You know, Chargers, I know they're 2-0, but I don't think they're this unbeatable force either. I know they beat the Chiefs, but the Chiefs don't look like the Chiefs of the last 5, 6, 7 years. And I talk about, we're going from a team that was a really good rushing team here with the Colts. Chargers are not a great rushing team right now. Omarion Hampton has not been good as a rookie. Justin Herbert was their leading rusher on Monday Night Football. Just the scramble drill where he'd take off running. So you got to be careful with that. Their defense is playing lights out. I'm interested to see if they can keep that up, because I don't think that they're the most talented defense by any means. But I think the Broncos stand a really good chance of winning that game. If they win that one, they're top of the division. And that's just crazy. You lose a game, it looks like it's already kind of going downhill, and then you're already back on top. And then the next week against Cincinnati, they might be the worst rushing team in football right now. Their defense is vulnerable. Their quarterback just went down for, at best, 3 months, maybe the entire season. And I mean, I'm not a Bengals fan, but man, I feel so bad for Joe Burrow. This is a guy that's played, I think it's 15 less games than Andrew Luck, and he's taken 27 more sacks. I mean, and it's not like the Bengals haven't done anything to try to fix that offensive line. They've thrown money at it. They've thrown draft picks at it. It just, nothing has worked because, well, one, they've not spent a whole lot on coaching. So they're showing very much that that's an underrated place to invest money into. But again, backup quarterback situation at home, Monday Night Football. I think Broncos got a really good chance to at least split the next 2 games, maybe sneak both of them. And then you're right back on track with 2 wins, 1 conference, 1 division, and looking really good as one of the top teams in football. So, you know, it's early. You're 2 games in. Everything's going to be high variance of what you've seen. You know, if your team is dominated, you're going to think your team is great. If you've had this up and down, you're not going to exactly know what you're going to have. And Broncos haven't put it all together. You know, Sean Payton has shown in the past, like, the Broncos start out slow. It takes a little bit of time before things really start clicking with what he wants to do for the season. October, November, that's where he really gets this team clicking and going in the right direction. So, like I said, I'm not too worried. This game really didn't change too much in my opinion. The defense disappointed me. But to see Bo Nix have a really good bounce back game, the offense in general, just going out there actually showing, hey, we can still win by offense too, makes me a little bit more at ease with that group compared to week 1.
Yeah, and I see David Youngkin saying, as soon as you guys say Chargers aren't that good in the run game, Broncos suck at stopping the run. They did quite well against the Titans offense. Titans rushing offense. That's actually been better than the Chargers rushing offense stopping the run. The Chargers and the Bengals both are bottom 10 in rushing EPA and rushing success. And issue is can the Broncos defense and the secondary step up and handle the passing offense, where the Chargers currently have the second best passing offense in success rate and EPA, behind the Colts, ironically. So that is a bit of concern. I think that without Joe Burrow, I think they're in a good position to be a Bengals team that is struggling. But Jake Browning came in and played terribly for Burrow. But there is a difference when you go into a game knowing you're the starting quarterback. They game plan a little bit differently, and what they're doing is a little bit different. Whereas when you come in and step in for the starting quarterback who got hurt, you're still kind of running with the same game plan that was built around that other quarterback. So I do think Zach Taylor is a little bit overrated as a coach. Going ahead, obviously, as the Chargers are next up on the schedule, but I think that there's a good chance the Broncos walk out of this 1-1 between. I mean, I've seen some of it tonight. I saw a lot of it yesterday morning when I was on with Nick. There's a lot of Broncos are going to be 1-4, 1-5 after the next 4, 5, 6 games, like coming away with one win. And while that's possible, I just don't think it's very likely. In the NFL, it's actually hard to lose 4 games in a row unless you're actually a really bad team. And I don't think Denver's a really bad team. I think they may not be as good as they like to think they are with their internal Super Bowl expectations, but it is a long season. There's a lot of variables in it, and teams don't ever finish the way they start, right? They're always different one way or the other. Injuries happen, players develop, players grow, play calling styles change a little bit. So there's a lot into it. And it was a bad week 2 showing. There's still some positives from this game that you can look at and go and dig into and see as that could be why the Broncos could potentially beat the Chargers. I don't think it's likely. I'm going to pick Denver to lose this game. Spoiler alert. But I think that there's a good chance that they, after week 5, I think they'll probably be 2-3.
There you go. We'll see. We'll find out soon enough. Well, I thought we can go ahead and get into maybe our stock up, stock down here. And I didn't know, do you want to start with stock down, stock up? Where you want to start here, Eric?
Well, we can alternate, right?
If
you want to start, you can do stock up and I'll do stock down, and then you can do stock down, I'll stock up. We can do
stock up. Yeah, well, I think there's some easy ones here. And I'll go with one of the easier ones. Troy Franklin.
Yeah.
You and I, we've had our questions about him and how well he was going to translate to the NFL. But this is by far the best game that he has had as a Denver Bronco. And I don't think it's even close. I mean, he's had a couple really fun catches at different times. But as a complete game, he was a guy on a mission. And especially that one drive where he had, I think, 3 catches. The deep catch on the left sideline, the slant play, and then the easy touch. I mean, the touchdown was the easiest catch of them all. And then you add in, he had another 11 yards rushing on top of that. So a guy that had 100 yards, 1 touchdown, and 8 receptions on 9 targets. He showed the ability to go deep, showed the ability to win over the middle, showed the ability to win with routes, athleticism. I mean, he just showed everything that you want to see from a guy that you hope can be a big-time playmaker for you this year. And now this is going to give teams more to have to worry about. You know, I think the Colts did a lot to try to shut out Cortland Sutton and try to say anybody but Sutton beat us. And the fact, like I said, Troy Franklin stepped up that way. I think that's going to be really good to see now. How do teams adjust to this? Or do they just keep letting him have that opportunity to go out there and do well? So he's a big stock up for me. I'm excited to see what he does next. I worry just a little bit. There's going to be that time where he gets that really stupid penalty for over celebrating. There was one play, I think it was the slant play where he got a big first down, made like 2 guys miss, and he was celebrating, and the refs kind of came over and told him to stop, and he kept celebrating. They came over, told him a second time, and I was like, dude, just stop. I was just a little bit nervous about that. I just those stupid penalties, because that's like 15 yards, and all of a sudden you go from first and goal to now you're like first and 10 at the 20. And it just completely changes the direction of the drive. So, but again, I'm excited for him. Happy that he has worked his tail off to get where he is right now, compared to last year where we were even questioning if he was going to make the roster, to now maybe being one of the best playmakers on the team.
Yeah, I mean, he's one, and I said that yesterday, is I'll have to eat crow on that. And, you know, he's one that I had my questions about. So a lot of questions about. I didn't think with all that he needed development on that he would show all of that in one offseason. And he has. I mean, he's shown the better route running, the better ball tracking, the more consistent hands. I mean, he's the Broncos' leading receiver. Most targets, most catches, most yards. Like, he's the leading guy right now. And part of that is, you know, the Colts did make it so anybody but Sutton, they threw a lot of triangle coverage his way. And that's helped lead to the interception. So it is what it is. Now for stock down, there's a lot of players on defense that you could go with. But I'm going to go with one. I'm going to go with DJ Jones, because watching him against the run, I don't know how many times I heard of this over the offseason that he's such a great run defender. He's one of the best run defenders. He's average at best, and this game really proved it. The Colts had enough respect for him as a run defender to limit how often they ran his way, but they didn't have enough respect to where when they did run his way, they would did it with behind a double team. It just is what it is, and he's fine. He just can't win consistently one-on-one, and he definitely can't handle the double teams, and it led to a lot of issues. Led to issues with guys getting to the offensive lineman getting to the second level and being able to seal off lanes and leaving openings for it. So it is what it is. And I see a couple guys going off about my record prediction that I made in August, before the season even started. I said 13-4. Doesn't look likely, but record predictions. It is what it is. So it's whatever.
Yeah.
Can chalk it up to another thing that I was wrong on, right?
Hey, they still got 3 more losses to work with. And maybe some things start
only
to click.
2 weeks into the season. I guess, it's all over. 7-10. Here we come, right?
I remember quite a few teams that the Broncos were 2-3 in the first 5 games of the Peyton Manning era. How'd they finish that season? 13-3.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, they went on a nice little run there. And we've seen with Sean Payton, he can get on a nice run where you win 4, 5, 6, 7 games in a row. And it all of a sudden you're going, okay, this team's got something going. So we'll have to see. I'm not discounting your 13-4 prediction quite yet. I was hoping the offense would be showing I guess more it's not just the offense. It's just consistency. Week 1, defense looked all world. The offense kept putting them in a terrible spot, and yet they kept showing up time and time again. And then this week, it completely reversed where defense was really struggling. Offense was finally showing up. And so, just getting that place where both sides can actually consistently show up. You know what you're going to get week in, week out. I was a little bit worried about that with the defense this year because they were such a high variance defense. It was either they dominated or they got dominated. There really wasn't much in between for this group. And I get some people are like, well, that was a Manning-led team. I get it. But we also really didn't know what Manning was that year. Kind of like this year. We don't know what Bo Nix is yet. He went out there and had himself a good game. I mean, I think he probably will make one of our stock ups because he had a really nice bounce back game. I mean, the interception stinks. But other than that one throw, I thought he did well commanding how the game was going. And so we'll see how that goes. Okay, stock down for me. I'm going to go Defensive Player of the Year, Patrick Surtain. And it wasn't like he was badly out of position or anything like that. Like most of the time he was right there and he limited any kind of yards after catch. But for a guy, like I said, best cornerback in football, you would think this is the one guy you can depend on, going to shut him down. They would never want to throw at this guy. And they went after him and he got bullied. There were some 3rd down plays. He could have stopped about 3 or 4 drives if he really, if he had just a hair a little bit better coverage. And I will give to Daniel Jones. I was impressed by that guy. I mean, there were some nice throws. He was helped by playmakers, but he put it in a spot for them to go catch it. And like I said, there's just those few drives where it's like one play. That's all you need. One play to stop this. And we couldn't get it done. And Patrick Surtain was a part of that. I expect him to bounce back. I'm not worried about him by any means. And he was hurt for part of that game. So it wasn't like he was 100%. But for Defensive Player of the Year, one of your highest paid players, you expect that guy to be the guy that goes and makes the play when you absolutely need one.
Yeah. And just remember last year, the Philadelphia Eagles started 2-2. They ended 14-3 and winning the Super Bowl. They lost by 1 point in week 2 to the Atlanta Falcons, who, sorry, Scott, weren't a very good team last year, and then got blown out in week 4 by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So is it the same thing?
Beat.
No, but week 2, the point is week 2 isn't the end all be all. Teams can improve from this. Maybe Denver does. 13-4 likely? Probably not. But it's not like it's not impossible. And then I'm on stock up, right?
Yep.
Oh, my stock up on offense. Man, you know what? Just to anger people in chat, Ben Powers. Ben Powers was better against the Titans than a lot of people realize, and he was really good against the Colts. Was it perfect? Not at all. You don't get perfect in the NFL. You don't get perfect in college either. But he was a lot better against the Titans than people think. He followed that up with a really good game against the Colts, where he was I think he was the second best offensive lineman in it. Quinn Miners really struggled handling DeForest Buckner. Buckner was able to blow up multiple plays when going against Miners. Mike McGlinchey was solid, but he also had some issues. So stock up for Ben Powers. And he's one of those guys that watching live, sometimes you kind of underappreciate what he's able to do. And that's why you should always go back and watch the game a little bit, especially for offensive linemen, before really judging their play.
All right, so back to me, stock up. And I guess I'm taking the easy ones here. I got to give it to Bo Nix. To have the game he did week 1, throwing all those interceptions, looking like, oh, crap. All this hype going into the year, and then he lays this egg. To come back out and follow it up the way that he did, to have some plays where he challenged things down the field. He used his legs when he needed to. He was aggressive, but he wasn't too aggressive other than his interception. I mean, I'll have plenty of problems with that one really bad play. But at the same time, like Daniel Jones had one play that he got away with. Jonathan Cooper should have intercepted it. Pick 6 the other way. Broncos are walking away with a game winner. He got away with it. It got dropped. Bo Nix's is dropped. We kicked that field goal, and we're kind of like, oh, here we go. 3 touchdown game. Sometimes it just happens that way.
Yeah.
And, I've had a few people write me today going, hey, PFF didn't give him a good grade. Like, the PFF grades are not worth what I used to wipe my. Okay, I'm going to stop. But their grades. I mean, I like some of their raw stats, and we talk about PFF plenty. But their grades, a lot of times, if they already have an idea of what they think a player is, everything goes through that filter. And we knew going into the draft, they did not like Bo Nix. So he could go out and complete every single pass, have a 7 touchdown game, and they'd probably still give him an average score. Just sometimes that's what they do. And sometimes they don't like the Sean Payton system either, where it is a lot of short, quick throws, timing, all those kind of things. So it's not the launch it deep, 50-yard, air yard touchdown every single game. He has a couple of those, don't get me wrong. But it's more about the just having it in the right place, right time, letting your playmakers go make the play. And Bo Nix did a really good job in this game and taking advantage of the opportunities that they were given. You talked about how the defense stepped up to stop him in the red zone. Bo Nix did amazing in the red zone.
Mm-hmm.
The Broncos coming away with those 3 touchdowns in the first half. That's the only way that all of a sudden it's like, okay, we got dominated and we're still winning because they took advantage. Like I said, turned those into 7 points, not 3. And that's a big part of what Bo Nix brings to the play. He was one of the better red zone quarterbacks last year, and he's continued that this year. So very happy about that. And I'm not worried about him. I do think he's going to have himself a good year. This next game, because Chargers they're good. You were talking about the Colts being very disciplined on the offensive line, very good technique, know what they're doing. Kevin Minter has the Chargers defense that way. They do not make mistakes. They rally to the ball. They play a ton of zone. They're pretty much saying, hey, like, we will let you throw it short, but we are going to come up. We're going to make the tackle. You're not going to have any kind of yards after catch. And we're going to make you go down the field at 3 to 5 yards at a time. And if you can't stay disciplined, if you cannot get a bad penalty, we're going to beat you.
Yep.
And not many teams can do that. If you have, we were talking about fantasy football before the show started. I think the running backs could have 10 catches in this next game, just because they're going to cover everything deep with that zone coverage, leave the short passes open. And so I think Harvey, Bidet, and Dobbins all could have those opportunities to go make a play.
Yeah. That defense is the living, whatever the word escaped me at the moment, living example of bend but don't break defense. They pride themselves on limiting explosive plays because explosive plays are game-changing plays. Like, there's a reason why they're so important for offenses, and they're focused on doing that. So, and then with Bo Nix, it was a good game. PFF, he should not be the lowest graded quarterback. I think there are a couple plays from a couple quarterbacks from the last 3 games of this week, of week 2, that played significantly worse. But it is what it is. I don't think Bo Nix was out, like great. I think he was average, above average, around there against the Colts, which is significantly better than what he was against the Titans. But my next stock down person, I'm going to stick with on the offensive side of the ball, Evan Ingram. Right, he had 1 catch, and he's dealing with the calf injury, and it still seemed like that was bothering him a little bit. Which, one of the concerns with him was last year he missed 8 games. One of them was with a lower leg injury; it was a hamstring. Then he tore his pec and missed the final 4 games. And he's a guy that has struggled to stay healthy, and you want him to stay healthy because he can be a impact player. But the lack of route running, or the issue with the calf, led to some issues with his route running. He had 1 catch that went for a first down, and then he really struggled to get separation, which is struggling throughout the game. And when your next tight end is Adam Trotman, you got to get Evan Ingram out there on the field, and you got to have him playing at a high level. This was probably a game, just when thinking about the long term of the season, this is a game that probably Evan Ingram should have sat out, just because it is a game that you did not want to risk his calf over, especially when it being very obviously bothering him once the game started.
Yeah, you're right. They probably should have just sat him out this week, just given him the time to truly heal up and hopefully by the next week be ready to be a full participant and go out there and be the impact player that we hope he can be, that he was paid to be. Yeah. And it's disappointing, as much as his role was talked about this entire offseason. And I do think sometimes it was media pushing it more than Sean Payton. But Sean Payton talked about it too. Of, hey, we've got ourselves a joker. We've got ourselves a guy that can really stress a defense.
He played into it.
Yeah, he did. And so far, like you said, it hasn't happened. He hasn't really been that big stressor that makes defenses go, oh, crap, we got to worry about this part of the field because of what he's doing out here.
Yeah.
And hopefully opening up everything else. Like I said, this game was one where they really, truly did say, we are stopping Sutton. Anybody else, we dare you to have anybody else go out there and beat us. And so this should have been a game that Evan Ingram, if he was healthy and truly going, could have been that. Now, the other issue, he's not getting the snaps either. I think he was only like 38% of the snaps in this one.
Yeah, he's at like 24 snaps total.
Yeah. And so I don't know if that's, I think part of it is the run blocking. You want a little bit more from the tight end position. They've gone a lot more big package, bring in Palczewski for some of those. But still, you got to take advantage of the opportunities you've been given. And so far, he hasn't been that kind of guy for you. So we'll see. Like I said, 2 games in, very small sample size. I'm sure they still have some plans for him and how they're going to use him moving forward. And we'll just see how that goes. But all right, stock down for me. I mean, part of me wants to put Will Lutz because, I mean, I get it. Like, he only had the one opportunity for a field goal. But you were right. Earlier, it was, and my daughter was watching with me, kind of. I mean, she was on her iPad playing a game, and I'd be like, hey, look at the game. And she'd look up for like 2 seconds and go back to her game. But after one of the extra points, I turned towards her and I said, I hope it doesn't come down to a Will Lutz field goal, because I don't think he'll make it.
Yep.
And my daughter just kind of, cool, Dad. Yeah, like she didn't care about my analysis of the situation. But it was one of those where you're like, this does not look like a good kicking day for him. And just like when he missed, I was yelling at the TV and my daughter's like, oh, it must have been really windy. I'm like, nope, it's a dome stadium. Oh, why'd he do that? I'm like, and so, and I hate to do that for a kicker, like one bad play, but the fact that you could see it coming. And when so many of these games like this could be the make or break of you going to the playoffs.
Yep.
If you get into a tiebreaker situation with the Colts, they get in, you don't. And it's a conference game as well. So that hurts you in other tiebreaker situations. And you could have had a 2-game lead on the Chiefs. So there's just a lot of things that really went into this. I get it's a lot of pressure on a kicker, and I hate it. And we're seeing kickers miss at an astounding rate this year. I don't know what happened to kickers, but they all decided we all stink now, except for like a few of them. And I just really hope that Will Lutz doesn't continue down this path.
Just to make a joke about Rich Eisen, maybe kickers just realize they don't matter. They're not people too. Kickers are people too, his whole thing. No, it's, as you said, with Will Lutz, one kick isn't the issue. It is the fact that it was every extra point and everything that you could see it. It's going center, and then it just curves back to the right. It was something with what he was kicking, something with the field that he adjusted for, something with it changed up to where he started knuckleballing those, and they had that curve on it. And it was just one of those things where my daughter wasn't here on Sunday. She's always over at my parents', but I texted a friend of mine, it was something similar about this. I was like, he is going to miss one of these at one point. Like it's going to be wide right because it keeps curving back to his right, and wasn't wide right, bonked off the right bar. But that's always tough. And then I'm going to do a stock up. I'm going to do it on somebody on the defense, highlight somebody else. And I'm going to throw 2 together. Jonah Ellis and Zach Allen. Jonah Ellis, man, if you're talking about most improved players from last year to this year, Troy Franklin on offense, Jonah Ellis on defense. Yeah. And it's not necessarily what Jonah Ellis has done as a pass rusher. It's been what he's done as a run defender. He has improved exponentially as a run defender. And it was something that I highlighted in a film piece during the preseason. And it's one of those things that always stands out, just the way he's playing it. And then Zach Allen, as bad as the defensive line was, and I didn't realize this until watching the game back and watching it over and focusing in on Allen to put him through my grading thing. He did the right thing almost every single snap. He didn't lose badly often. There were a couple pretty bad losses. He didn't have big wins either, but he would do well. He'd set an edge. He'd stand up his blocker, and then DJ Jones would fall to the ground, or Alex Singleton would just completely whiff behind the line of scrimmage like he did 2 or 3 times. Or one of the safeties, Brendan Jones, a few times was really late working downhill, and hey, he was playing closer to the line of scrimmage, and that led to issues. So Allen was doing the right thing. And, you mentioned PFF. PFF has a vendetta against Zach Allen as a run defender, I guess. And I don't know what his run defense grade was from Pro Football Focus, but if it was anything less than in the 70s, it just confirms they have a vendetta against Zach Allen.
Yeah. I really don't know what he did to them, but whatever. We know what he brings to this team, and the people that really pay attention to the trenches, those people that actually respect their opinion. I mean, those are the people always talking about him, going like, this is a top 10 interior defensive lineman in football. Yeah. And anybody saying otherwise doesn't know what they're watching. And so I'm with you. That's a great group. And like I said, Jonah Ellis, man, I'm really liking that guy. That draft class now, you're starting to look at these guys and go, okay, you've maybe got yourself a real playmaker, wide receiver. Maybe you've got your quarterback. Maybe you've got a future edge starter that could be a high quality guy. And right now he's just great depth behind 2 good guys. And so it's great to see these guys taking that next step. That's what you needed for this team if they were really going to rise to become Super Bowl contenders. Now we'll still see whether they're really going to get to that kind of level or not, but at least right now, seeing those kind of guys step up, it's going to be something good for the future of this team. So I'm with you there. All right, stock up for me. I think I will go. I'll go J.K. Dobbins. I thought this was a really good game for him. I thought he did a great job finding the right play, where everything was opening up. Saw some really good cutback lanes. 14 carries, 76 yards, 5.4 yards per carry. Had the touchdown, and he also added a catch to that. I just thought he was very, very solid. He's what you hope he could be for the entire season. And then RJ Harvey can be that guy that comes in and gives you the big playability like we saw week 1. And those two can be a really nice 1-2 punch. I mean, great thing is right now, even if they haven't quite got everything clicking on the run game, Broncos have the best running game in the AFC West. Chiefs, terrible. Chargers, terrible. Raiders, terrible. Each of them for different reasons. Some of them it's offensive line work. Some of them it's the running backs not seeing the right places to go. But the fact that the Broncos have the best running attack in the AFC West is kind of funny to see, especially when you see, Raiders invested in Genty, Chargers invested in Hampton.
And Harris.
Yeah. Chiefs, I think they just kind of thought, who cares? We got Mahomes. We don't care. But I think that's going to be one of the Achilles heels. It's going to keep coming back and biting them. And they're having to really rely on the legs of Mahomes to have any kind of running attack. And that's not a good thing. He's been banged up before. So that's not what you want your quarterback doing. But no, I do. I was really happy with J.K. Dobbins. I thought he showed a little bit more explosiveness than he did week 1, where he's a little bit more confident where he was supposed to be going, and he really went for it.
Yeah, and that was the one thing after week 1. You saw it in the group chat. I was livid about the usage with J.K. Dobbins. His legs looked shot, and they wanted to use him outside, and he can't do that. And I think against the Colts, he continued to show that he can't take him outside.
Right.
His runs came between the tackles, and it was just get up, get going north and south, and pick up what the defense gives you. That's where Dobbins needs to be utilized. North and south, get upfield, take what the defense gives you, and just go. He did look a little bit more, have it look like he had a little bit more of that initial burst, but it's just not sustainable burst. There was one or two runs. I know at least one where he seemed to be able to have, if he had that second gear, he probably breaks away and busts off a 20-30 yard run. But you can see him as soon as he gets to the hole, you can see it kind of like ease up. And I don't think it probably wasn't willingly. It's probably just because his legs are shot and just couldn't sustain it. But he showed what he can be effective with and do that. Now, question is, can it be sustained throughout the season? That's always been the concern with him. Last year for the Chargers, he was one of the more efficient running backs and one of the better running backs in the first 3 or 4 weeks. And then he was one of the worst at the end of the season, just because that's how bad things got for him. And his body just kind of wore down as the season went on. That happens with running backs, but hopefully Tyler or RJ Harvey is able to step up, who had a very bad game against the Colts. He has to learn what Dobbins did, right? Just get going north and south and just go. And that was an issue against the Colts. He just danced around a little bit too much. There was one play where there was an open lane. Like he was going off Quinn Miners and Mike McGlinchey. There was an open cutback lane between Wattenberg and Powers. And instead of going to hit it, he kind of stutter steps behind Miners and then gets tackled. So something that he has to improve on. But there's the really good potential in this running back room to be a solid, I don't want to say great, solid two-headed monster. In this, another stock down. I mean, there's so many here. I'm going to throw it in as a position group with the linebackers, with the exception of Justin Strnad. Not that Justin Strnad was great against the Colts. He has his issues, but it is Alex Singleton was awful. Missing Dre Greenlaw with what you paid for him, with all that you put on his plate, was bad. When Nick and I did our position grades in the preseason in August, I gave this linebacker room a D+, and that looks like it was generous. And Justin Strnad, minimal improvements over last year, which is fine, but it's to the point where with Alex Singleton, he's the main stock down player, Alex Singleton. It is to the point where when Dre Greenlaw comes back, whenever that is, whether it be in week 3 or week 4, or, the Broncos made a mistake by not putting him on injured reserve and he misses more time than the first 4 weeks. When that happens, you cannot keep trotting Alex Singleton out there. Justin Strnad does what he does and is doing it better than what Alex Singleton does. That includes being a stack linebacker. You cannot roll Alex Singleton back out there once you have Dre Greenlaw healthy.
Yeah. All right, we'll get to this last question and then we'll get out of here, guys, unless we get last second superstars coming in. But Phil coming in saying, and sorry we missed this earlier, it says, good evening, Carl, Eric, and Deacon Scott. What grades do you guys give each unit? Hashtag Buckham, hashtag MHH for life. So offense, I'll give them a B+. I mean, you put up 28 points, should have been 31 with the missed field goal. Mm-hmm. That's pretty good. I mean, 31 points average for a season, you're top 5 in points. And I thought the passing attack looked good. Running, like I said, J.K. Dobbins was good. R.J. Harvey had his struggles, but then you add in, obviously, Bo Nix had a couple of really good carries there for first downs. Troy Franklin had a nice end around for a first down. Like I said, I thought the offense did well. Just the turnover, the interception was bad. Second half, only putting up 7 points when all you needed was 2 more. And there was a couple opportunities there that were missed by the offense that should have won the game. I mean, if you put up 28 points, you should win most games.
Yeah.
So I got to give them a B+.
I think it is, 17.5 points is typically if it's under 17.5 points and you lose, it's typically the offense. If it's over that and you lose, it's typically the defense. That's generally been, the rule of thumb for NFL games over the last, 10, 15, 20 years. And they scored enough points. I would probably give the offense a B, just because I think, part of that is just the final few drives when you had that ability to close it out. You had 19 plays that went for like 63 yards, 83 yards, something like that. I can't remember the exact number. Not good enough. You had an interception on one of those, obviously the missed field goal, and then a punt. You got to be able to close out games a little bit better. That's something that can take a good offense to a great offense, or a good team to a great team. Closing out games. Started off hot, and they had really good success there for a while. But once the second half game, you started to see the offense flutter a little bit, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, where it's like they get to a point where they're scared to make a mistake, so they don't go pedal to the metal exactly, and it just leads to mistakes being made by the offense. And this was an issue that I talked about last year, in particular with the defense, but it applies to the offense too. This offense and this defense, they are made to be aggressive. So when you ease up a little bit, it's not surprising they start to make mistakes a little bit. It's one thing with Sean Payton and Van Joseph both is you got to stay aggressive throughout and be smart about it. You can't ease up and, just keep playing to win, and mistakes are going to happen either way. Stick to what you built your offense to be, aggressive. So a B.
Yeah. All right. Defense, we'll go a little bit quicker here just because we're kind of getting long on time. I'll give them a D+. I got to give it to them for their red zone stops, but overall, just too many explosive plays given up in this one, too many miscommunications, too many penalties. Just a lot went wrong in this one. They had a few things go right, but mostly wrong. And when you expect this unit to be a top 5 unit, this is a game where you should not be losing the game for your team.
Yeah. So Carl's a little bit more, not necessarily optimistic, but a little bit higher on things. I'm going to go with the D for the defense. And what keeps them from being an F is the red zone defense, stepping up there. But the miscues, the miscommunications in coverage, the wheel route to Jonathan Taylor, there was absolute confusion between Patrick Surtain and Alex Singleton as to what was going to happen. There was another play that was, I believe it was Zade Barron and Singleton or Surtain, and just a lot of confusion with it, a lot of miscues, a lot of losing guys, just so many issues. Good as they were in the red zone, doesn't overcome that. So it's a D for me for the defense.
Yeah. And then finally, special teams. it's so hard because some of them were really good. Crawshaw had another great game.
Yeah.
He deserves an A for this game. But then field goal units on both sides, making the mistakes they did. I think you still have to give this group an F with like that exclusive, like, hey, like the group project failed. Hey, but Crawshaw, you did really good on your part. And the coverage units, you guys did really good on your part. It's just these two over here completely failed at what they were supposed to do.
Yeah, and Todd is asking, what's the Greenlaw injury? It's a quad, right? It's quad or a calf.
Quad.
But as for special teams, it's tough. I'll split it up here. I'll give 2 grades for it. I'll give the field goal kicking and field goal block, the field goal units, kicking and blocking, a F. You know, you had the big penalty at the end and the missed field goal. And the punting and kick and coverage units for both of those, punting and kicking those units, I'd probably give them a B+. Like Crawshaw did really well. Some issues with kick coverage. Never saw them on punt coverage, but hey. So it's there, no complaints there, obviously. Well, outside the defense not forcing punts. But outside, yeah, kick coverage was a little bit off, but Crawshaw, another great game. I saw somebody on Twitter was going off how he only averaged like 44.5 yards per punt. All 3 of them were in the 20. He was punting with shorter yardage, and he was pinning the Colts back. It's what you want. And so he had a good game, and he was probably one of the better Broncos as a whole in this game.
All right, well, good question to end on there. Thank you so much, Phil, and thank you for the stars. Thank you, Chris Bell, Michael Ronquillo, and David Cremello, all coming in here with super chats. Guys, thank you so much. We're going to get out of here pretty quick, but make sure you guys are liking this, sharing this, whatever you guys can do to help us out. Appreciate everyone that already liked and loved and all those different things into the video. Appreciate all of the support you guys give, and even in a loss. Like I said, I know this was a tough one. I mean, it's just gut punch to have this happen right at the end, but not all is lost. There's still a lot of good going on with this team, and I'm 13-4, as Eric said earlier. That's what this team's going to be, and they're going to get back on track hopefully this week against the Chargers, put them back in first place in the division. Eric, thank you for coming in with me, guys, and hopefully Nick is finishing up his packing, getting ready to get on the road here in the next few days. And anyway, but thank you guys again. Great show, and we will see you next week. Go Broncos.